So welcome. Hello, Lindsay. Hello, David.
Hi,
hello,
Tim.
Matt. Hi. Hello, Val. Hello, Kerry. So I'm just going to give it a couple of ticks, but welcome to our webinar, which is an information webinar in regards to the Learning Skills Teacher Apprenticeship. A little bit of information for everyone about the Level 5 diploma, and also a little bit about the scheme that exists, which is TTF, which is Take and Teach and Further scheme with the government as well. So we're going to add a little bit of information into all of that for you too this afternoon. So I'm literally going to give it about another 1 minute, and then if our expected friends haven't arrived, then they'll happily be able to watch the recording, which is part of the reason why we've recorded the session this afternoon. So almost ready. I shall, in a moment, I'll share my screen with everyone, and I'll just get you all to confirm with the use of a thumbs up that you're able to see the screen that I shall share. So I'm just going to do that now. Cool. So if everyone can just give me a little virtual thumbs up there to see if you're able to see the screen here, and that'd be good. Excellent. I see a thumb there from Matt. Lovely. And I'm sure other people will have pressed that as well. Okay. Well, just if other people join us, then we can welcome them when they come in and try and catch them up with any information at the end. So, as I say, this is our information webinar in regards to the Learning Skills Teacher Apprenticeship. Predominantly, a lot of the information is going to relate to the apprenticeship model, but as I say, I've also got some information and a little bit of info for everyone in regards to the Level 5 Diploma in Teaching, which is the revised qualification that's recognised as the standard in the UK, and then a little bit about Take and Teaching Further as well. So just to give you an overview of what we're looking at this afternoon, talk a little bit about typically the types of role that these qualifications are aimed at, and the type of person whom these qualifications will be the right choice for. A little bit of information around how the apprenticeship standard works, including details on the endpoint assessment. It's just to give an overview about what will be involved in that for anyone who will be participating, and as I say, a bit more info on the diploma. Overall, how the training for both routes will be covered, the types of areas that people are going to learn about and how that will help them in their career, and some of those requirements that exist in regards to both routes. And as I say, a little bit about Take and Teaching Further, and then an opportunity at the end to ask any questions. So typically, which roles are in scope for the Learning and Skills Teacher? Essentially, anyone who is teaching people aged over 16. It is aimed at the post-16 sector, so this is further and higher education. Typically, people working in the FE sector, whether that be with a college, with an independent training provider, corporate organisations where you may be working as a trainer, or even offender learning and community learning providers as well. The standard is not aimed at anyone who teaches people under 16 years. There is a slight caveat there where I've put an asterisk, which is in small sets of cases where someone's teaching people aged 14 to 16 in alternate educational provision, they may be eligible for the standard. But as I said, by and large, it's aimed at people who are teaching in FE. And typically, there's a few of the job titles or the job roles that you would expect to see. Lecturer, trainer, tutor, teacher, FE practitioner, those sorts of roles. So those are the types of a role that you'd expect to be on this type of apprenticeship. Broadly, most apprenticeships work in very similar ways, and this one's no different. So, as with all of them, there are a range of core duties that cover knowledge, skills, and behaviour, and all of that knowledge, skills, behaviour criteria must be demonstrated across the apprenticeship, and particularly the endpoint assessment, in order for someone to prove competence. There is a requirement to keep and maintain a record of off-the-job learning, and requirement for people to attend on-programme learning sessions, build a portfolio of evidence, and their assessment, as I say, is completed via endpoint assessment, or EPA, for those of you who are a bit more familiar with it. There are subtle differences between timescales and the endpoint assessment types for apprenticeships, but broadly they all have those same common features. And how the learning skills teacher works, I'll go on to specifically in a sec. There are some compliance requirements. So as I mentioned, that off-the-job log needs to be maintained. So there is a requirement for a 20% overall total, or the equivalent essentially of 6 hours per week of off-the-job training to be tracked. And this is where the learner would detail what they've learned, and how they've learned it, and the reflection that they have on the activities that they're involved in. Progress reviews are required to happen on the apprenticeship. So outside of the very first one, which a caveat at the bottom there says after 6 weeks, they would happen after every 10th week, and that involves the apprentice, the course trainer, and the employer. Really important part of the way that apprenticeships work in the modern world, to have that tripartite involvement. It's absolutely vital that the employer fully participates in that, and we've seen it proven that it makes such a difference to not only the apprentice but to the actual performance as well. By having that direct involvement with all three key people or key players, it really does make a difference to the training that's provided. And that's not just through being aware, that's actually by being actively involved in building the training plan with the apprentice, working with the training provider to make sure that both parts align to help the apprentice develop. Attendance at monthly workshops, as I say, is the on-programme learning part, but there is also additional things that the apprentice will be doing as well outside of that, whether that's pulling their portfolio together, whether that's bits and pieces of independent research or whatever. Because it is an apprenticeship, there is a requirement from government that everyone attains at least level 2 equivalent in English and maths, which is the equivalent of GCSE grades A to C in old money, or GCSE grades 4 to 9 in the new revision, or the equivalent of those. So, for example, functional skills level 2 for both parts. And that can be studied towards whilst on programme. So if someone does need to complete the functional skills elements on the apprenticeship, that can be done alongside the main qualification. So what does the learner skills teacher apprenticeship look like in terms of its on-programme period? So typically it's up to 18 months. With then a 3-month endpoint assessment period. The minimum that someone could do that, again, as with all apprenticeships, is 12 months and 1 day, plus their endpoint assessment period. But by and large, it's around about 18 months that you would anticipate someone to be on this apprenticeship for. And then, as I say, that endpoint assessment window at the end. There are 9 core duties, and in those core duties. They cover 20 knowledge, 25 skill, and 6 behaviour criteria. And across the KSBs and the duties, they're covering things like learning, teaching, and assessment, progressing learners, learner support, information, advice, and guidance, professionalism, use of technology, sustainability, and all that sort of thing. I think we may have someone just wishing to join. Kate, are you able to let them in?
Just joined. It was a little bit last minute, to be fair, so
it's quite all right. Don't worry. Just so that you're aware, we are recording a session. For anything you've missed, I'm more than happy to go over that with you at the end. Okay. Brilliant. Smashing. So, yeah, as I say, these are the main elements of it. So you've got 9 core duties, and then those KSBs covering those aspects. The endpoint assessment for the learning skills teacher apprenticeship, it's 2 core methods, but they're broken into 4 component parts overall. So assessment method 1 is a lesson observation, and then what's being referred to as a professional dialogue. And then assessment method 2 is a professional discussion, which is based on a portfolio of evidence. So you've got these 4 elements split across the 2 main assessment methods. So we'll look at them in a little bit more detail. So assessment method 1, first of all, as I say, the first element is the observed lesson, and then this idea of a professional dialogue. So the lesson will be observed by the independent endpoint assessor for 1 hour. It's no more, it's no less. It's an absolute hour observation, bang on the money, 1 hour's worth of teaching from start to finish, for which a lesson plan must be provided. There must also be a minimum of 5 participants in that lesson, excluding the apprentice themselves and the endpoint assessor. So a minimum of 7 people present in the room, in other words. The observation as well, it must be part of the apprentice's normal expected work. So nothing simulated, not a session that's been created just for the sake of being created. It's got to demonstrate normal working conditions and part of the apprentice's normal work. And following that observation of that 1 hour of teaching is a 45-minute discussion or question and answer, which is this thing referred to as the professional dialogue, which is directly related to the lesson that's been observed. So they've sort of framed it as professional dialogue just because it very specifically relates to the lesson that has just been observed. In assessment method 2, the 2 components here are the apprentice will build and create a portfolio of evidence, which is showcased and presented to the endpoint assessment organisation when they hit endpoint assessment gateway. And then there's a professional discussion for an hour, which is based upon the content of that portfolio. So anyone undertaking this apprenticeship's got those 2 endpoint assessment methods that need to be completed. In order to achieve the standard, as I say, both assessment methods must be achieved, and to achieve a pass overall, you must achieve all of the descriptors which are outlined in the core duties and the KSB criteria in both assessment method 1 and assessment method 2. So it's actually quite tough because you've got to achieve 100% pass in everything across both methods to achieve that pass. There is an opportunity to achieve a distinction. Again, in order to achieve a distinction grade overall, you've got to pass all of the assessment methods in both, all of the assessment criteria in both assessment methods and all of the distinction criterias in both assessment methods as well. So anyone achieving a distinction grade is doing exceptionally well. There is a third rating, which is a referral. So if for whatever reason someone was not to achieve the pass or the distinction in either of the assessment methods, then they would need to retake or resit the assessment method that they haven't achieved. If that happens, then overall their grade is limited to a pass. So even for sake of argument, if the first time round they achieved a distinction in assessment method 1, but they were referred in assessment method 2. They would only undertake assessment method 2 as the resit, but even though they had a distinction previously on the other method, it would limit the grade overall to a pass if they have to do that. So they only get one opportunity, in other words, to achieve the distinction. Okay, hopefully that made sense and everyone's happy. So that's the apprenticeship. I'm going to talk a little bit about the diploma now, which is the level 5 diploma in teaching, brackets educational skills, known as the DIT. It replaces what was formerly the DET, which is education and training. So the diploma in education and training, as it previously was, and it's an alternative option for qualification following a review and a reform that they've done. Again, it's an 18-month duration, the diploma, and it has been directly mapped to complement the learning skills standard. So they're both are designed to complement each other. The diploma, it's built up slightly different, where you've got your 5 mandatory units that need to be undertaken, and then there's an additional 3 units that need to be chosen from a potential 7 further units. So depending on the type of role that someone has, that would determine which of those additional units you may choose to do. On the diploma, there are requirements for some of those mandatory units that a number of observations happen across that period, and that's as you can see, they're quite a large amount. 10 separate observations have to happen in order to achieve the diploma, and as with any observation, lesson plans are always going to be required for those as well. Those observations, some of them can be conducted by a manager or a mentor within the workplace, and some of them will be completed by the tutor. So of those 10, 6 need to be completed by the tutor. Up to 4 can be completed by a workplace manager or mentor. A slight difference with anyone undertaking the diploma route to their qualification: before they start, they must hold the level 2 equivalent in English and maths. So unlike the apprenticeship, where you can work towards the level 2 equivalency whilst you're on the program, anyone undertaking the diploma must hold those level 2 qualifications before they start. It's simply just the way that they've set that qualification criteria up. The areas covered similar, definitely to the apprenticeship standard, which is, as I say, how it's been mapped. You can choose to do either of these, or you can choose to do both, and it'll complement each other. Across both models, our model is that attendance of monthly workshops will be mandated. As I mentioned earlier, that's an on-program learning aspect. Subjects of those workshops would relate to the duties or the knowledge, skills, behaviour areas, or the units that anyone will be looking to study. Typically, we deliver from our training centre here at Team Valley. Other options are available to be discussed, which I'll direct you to colleagues who are able to talk to you about that later, if that's something that you would need to know about. The workshop formats are really a mix of both taught information, group exercises, presentations, research tasks, feedback, all the things that you would anticipate and expect from a workshop. As I mentioned, you'd have pre and post session tasks as well, potentially forming part of those delivery models, which are designed to really embed and underpin the knowledge that's discussed in those sessions, so then those skills can be fully demonstrated and displayed in someone's workplace. And all of that can count towards activities on your off-the-job log. So anyone undertaking the apprenticeship, all of those activities can certainly go towards that 6 hours a week, or that 20% overall that they're looking to achieve. Absolutely, studying towards and working towards qualifications will aid career development. And we know just from our own experience and from the successes that we've had with other apprenticeships in the past, that employers recognise apprenticeships and qualification, build knowledge and skills for their team member, and absolutely make a difference. Both the learning skills teacher apprenticeship and the diploma in teaching can lead to QTLS, or Qualified Teacher Learning and Skills status. And both are recognised as your teaching standard for the FE sector in the UK. Anyone wishing to explore QTLS post completion of the either the apprenticeship or the diploma, there is an additional demonstrable portfolio that needs to be created, and there are again separate criteria that exist for that as well. So just a little bit for you around funding. So apprenticeship funding route is funded through levy or co-investment. So the apprenticeship levy and the co-investment would cover the cost of the apprenticeship, depending on the size of the organisation. Diploma can be funded through Take and Teaching Further. And both elements have an aspect which is described on this slide here. Take and Teaching Further is a programme that supports further education providers to recruit and provide early career support for people with relevant industry knowledge or experience who want to change career and come into teaching. So in effect, as I've said there, this is designed for people who are new to teaching. And in fact, one of the criteria for eligibility here is that anyone undertaking this must be new to a teaching role. It is limited to 3 participants per provider, and providers can receive through the Take and Teaching Further scheme support in the forms of £15,200 for the learning skills teacher apprenticeship, and £22,200 for those undertaking the diploma. And that's spread across the 2 years, so they cover the costs of recruiting that new teacher, and providing mentor support, and also undertaking the classroom-based learning and provision of that early career support as well. So that's what those figures are designed to support. Recruits, or anyone whom you wish to put onto this scheme and take advantage of it, they must have been recruited into their new position between February the 1st of this year, 2024, and January the 31st of 2025. If they were recruited before February 1st or after Jan 25, they would be ineligible for the Take and Teaching Further scheme of 2024. There is a deadline for registration on this for anyone who hasn't done this already, which is 5 p.m, very strict 5 p.m, on the 14th of June. Further information can be found about that on the .gov website, and as we've said on this screen here, the numbers are limited because the call's been open for a little while, so it is a sort of, if you've not made your move to get registered for this, I would urge you to do it relatively quickly. The registration, though, it is an expression of interest rather than the full bid overview, so you don't need specific names and details. That will come later. It is, as I say, that deadline on the 14th of June is for expressions of interest in that particular scheme. The subjects that can be covered here under the Take and Teaching Further, it's 15 subject areas which cover, as it says there, the vast majority of sectors. So these are the lists of areas, and you can see on the screen there, it's most wide-ranging, and anyone who works in any one of those sectors or related ones would recognise, I'm sure, their own sector, and you would have your own course codes, etc., that you would need to include on any expression of interest for that particular scheme. And that is pretty much it, other than there's some information here. For course content inquiries, you can ask myself. My contact details are there on the screen in the middle. You could also ask our quality and curriculum lead, Tracy. If I was unavailable, she'd be able to answer some of the course content queries as well. And for those enrolment and funding enquiries, and for those enquiries in regards to delivery location and the options potentially that could be there, I direct you to our head of partnerships, who is Kerry Burlinson. We will make all of these contact details and slides available to you all. If you let us know, we can certainly arrange to forward the slides to you. And I'll just say thank you all very much indeed for your attention. And if anyone would like, I'll open it up to any questions for you all now. You just do as a raise hand, and then I'll see if anyone's got any. No? No? Okay. Well, in that case, thank you all very much indeed. If you do post-session think of something that you would like to ask us about, or you something occurs to you after we've finished the session, by all means email in to us, and we'll be able to answer those for you via email. All right. Thank you all very much indeed.